being able to enjoy the ride and say, you know what, I've done enough and I'm just going to enjoy my day, or I'm going to take a day off, and just being okay in your own space. And that's when you truly are just happy being you.
This is By Joyan Season 2. I'm your host, Joyan Chan, and every Wednesday we bring you inspiring stories, powerful message, and fun conversations with me and my special guests and friends, and it's my personal mission to empower you to live and lead a life with joy. This podcast is for you if you're looking for more joy, courage, passion, and purpose in your life. Now let's dive into today's episode and get ready to laugh, learn, and live your life to the fullest. Our guest today improves lives through teaching people how to glow their mind with techniques to delete negative experiences and thought patterns, replacing them with positive, empowering thinking. From entrepreneurs to stay-at-home moms, dietetics to those with chronic illness, her one-of-a-kind method works for everyone who wants to live their best life. So guys, help me welcome it, the creator of Glow Your Mind with Megginson method, Mindtraining, the one and only Penney Megginson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joyan. I'm so happy to be here. This is great.
You briefly shared how you created, how you developed this very special method that is uniquely yours. So, how would you explain the Megginson method and what are the benefits?
So, originally I trained as a physiotherapist, and I teach Pilates and yoga. So, I've always worked a little bit with the mind body connection. And I started working a lot with neurological disease, chronic inflammation, and a lot of chronic pain. And what I noticed was that there was always this connection to what was going on in our life, whether it was a lot of stress or whether some of my patients were actually going through a trauma or even micro traumas. Just being the sort of nosy young physio that I was, I would always get involved in their life and try and help them figure things out. And I found that just helping people through that path and empowering them and creating more positivity helped them more than the actual physio that I was doing at all. And that made me realize that it starts with the mind. It really does. Because stress is always around us. It's really how we perceive it and how we allow it to affect us. So I started training with NLP techniques, neurolinguistic programming, and that led me to emotional freedom tapping, EFT. And I also trained in matrix reimprinting. I've done lots of work with different types of mindfulness and breath work. And it's the Megginson method really is this combination. And it's really the way, the order that I use these methods to kind of get into what is really blocking someone or what is causing this limited belief. So, I find that that's why often talk therapy, people can spend years talking about problems, but not actually dealing with it or even being aware of what the problem is. I find that these different methods work for different people in different ways. And so, for example, I might start with EFT tapping for someone who really has no idea why the problem is there or what the problem really is. It might even just be something as simple as not being able to sleep at night, and having difficulty with sleeping. So we would tap on that and see what emotions were there. And what happens is, as you sort of peel back the layers, kind of like peeling the layers of an onion, you get to that core issue. And often people have no idea that this issue was ever there. And sometimes just that awareness can be enough to fix the problem or actually empower you to be able to manage that problem. A lot of us are just kind of coasting through life, having no idea that we could actually feel better or happier because we're just so used to feeling the way that we do, especially if your childhood has always been this way that you've had to deal with certain conflicts. We tend to attract more of those kind of people in our life, and we don't even know that that isn't healthy because it's just our normal. And so one of the ways that Megginson method works is to sort of establish a new normal, like to realize actually this doesn't work for me. This isn't what I want. And actually, what do I want? And sometimes that is the hardest question to ask yourself.
Yes.
If you could have anything, what would that be? I don't know. I don't even want to answer that question. I have no idea. I've never even thought about it. We're just kind of coasting through and not really going after the thing that we really want. Because if you don't get it, then that's such a disappointment. So it's almost easier not to be striving for something you might not get, or you might not feel that you deserve it. And that goes down to some of these limiting beliefs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, most people don't know what they want. If you ask them what do they really want, they will tell you all the things that they do not want. That's why we focus so much on the negative stuff, right? We focus so much on what we don't want, and where focus goes, energy flows. We attract more of what we don't want. Yeah. So how do you help people to interrupt the patterns and change and rewire their brain, their mind, and start creating what they really want?
One easy technique, which I can tell your listeners now because I think it's just so simple and everyone should do this. It's just simple visualization. Have you ever tried visualization?
Yes.
Uh, so all top athletes, without even realizing that they do it, have always done it. And I think that's what separates these top athletes from athletes that just have really great skills. A friend of mine was in Aspen and was on a chairlift with Michael Jordan. And
Wow.
I spoke to him and said, what do you think about when you're on the court and everyone's cheering and there's all this noise? And he said, ever since I was a little boy, when I look at the basketball hoop, I see it as being so big and so low that there's no way that the ball won't go in. And that is just what visualization is. You just see things as being perfect, exactly how you want the result to be. And the fact is, your subconscious mind doesn't know what's real. So when you're playing this constantly in your head, it's almost as if it already happened. And so your mind's like, oh, yeah, we're just going to kick this ball and it's going to go in the goal. Or we're going to make that speech and it's going to be amazing. The self-doubt, it just goes out the window because you've replaced it with something else. The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. So you replace it with this new belief, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So visualizations, I know is powerful, but are you saying that we can use visualization to change a negative belief into a positive one? Give me an example. Let's say, okay, let's say which is a common limiting belief out there, like I am not smart enough, for example. How do I change that using visualization?
I would think of a specific situation that you want to present yourself in a very smart way. Let's say you're in a job situation, and every time you have to present your topic, you feel insecure. You feel like everyone's rolling their eyes and sort of saying, "Oh, here she goes again. She knows nothing." And by the way, none of what we believe is ever really true. If what you start visualizing every single day for a few minutes every morning is you getting up, giving this amazing presentation, everyone is smiling and saying wow and asking questions and then congratulating you afterwards. What you have to do is really light it up, make it colorful. It has to be so exaggerated where people are actually coming up and saying, wow, that was so empowering, that was so amazing, and you're feeling so good about it. So you really feel it, you really start to believe it on the subconscious level. If you do this every day, and most of the time it feels ridiculous, especially in the beginning, because it's so fake and it's so not the way that you think of yourself. If you do it every day for a few minutes, you'll notice that when you do get up in front of everyone, you just carry yourself in a different way. You'll be more confident. You'll say things that people actually go, wow, you've never been so confident. And that speech you just made was amazing, or that presentation, that sort of thing. And that's how you start to change because the subconscious mind starts to believe it. And so, even though you've never shown yourself in this way, the subconscious mind starts to believe that this is what just happened. And so, the next time you get up, you'll start to behave in that way. It's almost like there's this comment, act as if. So when you're trying to sort of move up in your career or in some aspect of your personality, if you want to become more outgoing, you just picture yourself being like the most outgoing person at a party, and you picture that every day until you go to that party where you've got to talk to people. And because you've already visualized yourself being able to work that room, have these conversations, and that everyone is interacting with you in a very positive way, it starts to replace all this negative thinking like, oh, I'm going to walk in, no one's going to look at me, no one's going to talk to me. And because that belief is almost gone, and you don't even realize it because it's all subconscious, you might still walk into that party, with your heart racing, going, I hate this sort of thing. I hate going into a room where I know no one. You'll automatically speak to more people than you would have before because of this visualization. So it's all happening on a subconscious level. And so something as simple as that can be a trick that you can try, and just find one specific thing that is, a thing that you really like to change, and see how that works for you. With a lot of these techniques, I tell people if they're doing it at home, if they're not working with myself or another coach, just stick to one thing until you really nail it. Because if you're doing too many things, it's just too much, and the mind isn't really able to engage with any of it. And so it's really important to think, what's that one thing that I want to work on, or I want to change, that one situation, and then focus on a technique to work on that. So the visualization can be good for that. Another technique I think is great is changing perceptions. I think this is really useful when there's a person or a situation that's, we call it toxic, or just difficult. Let's just use that as a word. But let's say there's a boss or a work colleague that just makes you feel a certain way, or is just very difficult to manage. Changing perceptions means take a situation and you take yourself out of it, and you watch that situation as a movie, and you see yourself and you see the other person in that movie, and you watch it as if you're in the third person, you're someone just watching the film, and you're able to see it in a subjective way. So you're able to see both parts. You can see all the things that maybe you're doing wrong that you could do differently, but you're also seeing it from the other person's perspective. And so it's a great way to see, like, how can I manage this situation in a different way that maybe is more empowering, or it would give me the result that I want. It's a great way of just seeing things from a different perspective, and it's easy. So when you come home from work and you've had another one of these situations with your boss, you'll be able to watch it and say, why am I not saying what I'm thinking? I just stand there and I just take it. I'm not saying anything. And then that gives you a little bit of an insight of, how can I change this?
Yeah, I love what you just shared, because I think that's very powerful to just focus on working on one thing that you want to improve, right? You want to work on. Because when I think about my visualizations, I was trying to work on so many things. I wanted to visualize my dream house, I want to visualize my dream partner, I want to visualize this dream job, like everything, right? Everything I want out of life. I want that to happen in like one visualization, which is like 20 minutes. It's not that long. But yeah, and I couldn't focus. I guess that's a word, right? Which is why when you said that, I focus on one thing, visualize, just one thing. I'm gonna start doing that, tomorrow, and then see what happens. But for the other techniques that you share, which is changing the perception, can we use that to change a past event or experience that already happened?
For an experience that's already happened, depends on the experience. I will give just a little, and this I usually do with people, but just to give a simpler, this is a very simplified way of doing it. It's kind of based on matrix reimprinting a little bit, but not exactly. If you think, let's say the past event involves a specific person. So often, a lot of perfectionism or feeling like you're not good enough will actually stem from, let's say, having a father that was never really around, and you felt like if you had been better, smarter, more successful, maybe they would have been around more, or would have loved you more, or would have appreciated you more, whatever. A simple thing that you can do is have that conversation. For a lot of people, having the conversation with the person who has really hurt you or made you feel not good enough, you're never going to get the actual response that you crave in real life. So even if this person is still around, maybe having that conversation might not actually be that useful because they may not be capable of saying what you want to hear. So, a technique is to close your eyes and you visualize having that conversation with that person. So, what I would say to someone is think of a happy place, a safe place, somewhere that you feel confident and it's your place. It can be anything. Like for some people, being on the beach is just calming. They love it. They love being by the water, or it can be, in nature, or it can be in your bedroom because it's your space. For some people, it's like sitting at a table and this person's across from you and you feel like you're in an office because they don't want that intimacy. And so, what you do in this situation is first you say everything you've ever wanted to say to this person, how they've made you feel, what you wanted from them, everything, anything that you have ever wanted to say. You say everything until you can't think of anything else to say. So you've got it all out. And then what I think is even more empowering is the second part where the person responds to you with everything you've ever wanted to hear, even if it would never happen in real life. They say everything that you've ever wished that they would say to you until it's all finished and you've heard all that you've needed to hear from them. And then you can carry on responding or whatever, and you play out this conversation exactly how you would have wanted it to be. And it's amazing how cathartic it is because a lot of our feelings about ourselves come from somebody else. And what's crazy is that this person will not even be aware of the effect that they've had on us. It could be a school bully when you were 12, and this kid was just acting because he was insecure himself. And he has no idea how he's affected you. And this thing, whatever it was, a name he might have called you, or one situation where you felt really stupid or really humiliated, and it's affecting you for your entire life. And this guy has no idea and would not even have, you might even run into this person one day and they'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
we went to school together, and they have no idea. And yet we've carried this ourselves for so many years. And so just having this moment to say what you needed to say and hear what you needed from this person, have them apologize and explain why they behaved the way they did, whoever it is, whether it's a parent that wronged you or an ex, or a lot of divorce situations, having that ex apologize and explain their side of things, and you being able to just say what you needed to say to them can be very cathartic for people, and they're able to just shut that door and move on. And then you don't actually need it in real life because it's kind of like it's done. It's what you needed to hear, and it's finished and you can move on. Because I think for a lot of people, you realize in that moment that, this person was just acting in the best way that they knew how. And it was their issue, not yours. And by having that conversation, you can sort of see it and understand it, which is what the reality is. But we never really accept that. It's like you spend the rest of your life wishing that your father would give you a hug and say, I love you, I'm proud of you. Maybe that would never happen because for whatever reason, the way he was brought up, he just doesn't know how to do that. And so you're never going to get that in real life, but it doesn't mean that they didn't feel that way. And just playing out the situation can, in many cases, give people what they needed to feel and hear so that they can move on.
And can we do that without any guidance?
I think you can try. I mean, I do this with a lot of my clients because I think there's always situations like this. I find that with most of my clients, most of our limiting beliefs have started somewhere in our childhood. And so, usually, no matter what technique I do, there will be some situation from our childhood that made us doubt ourselves. And then everything else just stacks on top of that to sort of make your mind go, yep, I knew that was true. And it's we call it negativity bias, where the mind focuses more on negativity, which, back in the day, it's what would keep us alive. You're looking for the lion that's going to eat you. You're not looking at the flowers and how pretty they are. We're looking for the negativity to keep ourselves safe. And that's basically what we're doing even now in modern times. So when you've had a moment that you were humiliated, you're always looking for that person or that situation that might humiliate you again. And that's why we close ourselves off to relationships or to certain friendships or even work advances, because we don't want to embarrass ourselves. So you won't put yourself out there like you did that one time when it didn't work out. And so it's really trying to close those situations down so that we don't keep looking for those situations. We realize that that was one moment in time, and, the world opens up and we can try new things again.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, limiting beliefs is not created just because of one event that happened, right?
No. Here's an example. Let's say when you were 7, you spilled a glass of milk, it breaks all over the floor, and your mom is having a stressful day and she's screaming at you, "Oh, you're an idiot. How could you do that? So stupid." Even if she comes back an hour later and says, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean any of that. Mommy was just stressed out." It's already gone in. So there's this negative message and it's just sitting in your subconscious. So let's say a couple years later, you're playing with a friend and you do something and maybe you break something of theirs and they're like, "Oh, you're such an idiot. You broke this thing. You're so stupid," or whatever. It goes in there as well. And it's the same message. So the brain kind of goes, "Oh, yeah, I've heard that before. That must be true." You start to, every time there's a moment that happens again, and these little things, they happen all the time, but because you've had this sort of waiting in your brain, you're seeking it, you're finding it, and paying more attention to it, where the person next to you who hasn't had that particular situation, someone could go, "Oh my God, you're such an idiot," and they're like, "No, I'm not." And you'll go, "Yeah, you're right. I am," on a subconscious level. Of course, we're not consciously thinking this. It's all happening in the subconscious. And that's where our limiting beliefs come from. So then you're not pushing yourself, you're not excelling, you're not doing the things that you would do because deep down, you don't feel like you're that smart. You think you really are that idiot who's just going to mess everything up. You won't go for, the big presentation in the office because you're thinking secretly, "Yeah, I'd love to do that, but I'd probably mess it up." You're always kind of second guessing yourself because this little message is there and it's kind of like it's just playing on replay in your subconscious all the time. So it's really just trying to get that to shut off. First, identifying it. And often just identifying it is enough, where you're like, "Oh my God, I do feel like that. Why do I feel like that?" And then you realize that it isn't real. And then that knowledge can often be enough to empower you to work through that. When you hear yourself kind of second guessing yourself, you're able to go, "No, I'm going to go for this anyway."
Mm, yeah, yeah. So you have worked with so many people, from entrepreneurs to moms to, I don't know, like people with chronic illness, like basically everyone, right? Everybody.
Yeah.
But what is the common pattern you see across all these groups?
I would say the most common pattern that I see in most people is a feeling of not being good enough.
Mm,
And it can be not pretty enough, not smart enough, just generally not good enough, or not likable. People don't like me enough. It's not just not being enough. And I think that that always comes from, these little situations that made us doubt ourselves. What some people do is go into more of a perfectionist, trying to, be the best at everything because deep down they don't feel like they're good enough. And we'll see that in really successful people who might, be running a really, successful business, but they're not really happy. And maybe they're not successful in relationships and that sort of thing because deep down they actually don't feel good enough. And they're just creating all this success around them to try and boost how they feel about themselves. and getting to, like I was saying before, about the layers of the onion peeling back to get to that core issue. If we can get to that core issue of not feeling good enough and deal with that, then you're just happy just being who you are, no matter what you're doing. So a lot of the burnout that we see is from people not feeling good enough and just feeling like they're on this like hamster wheel trying to do better, and nothing is ever good enough to fill that hole. So no matter how successful you are, you don't feel it. You always feel like you should be doing more.
But aren't we supposed to improve ourselves, learn more skills, work on our strength, be a better person? How do we know that we are actually striving for achievement or success on the external just so that we can feel good enough or worthy enough versus like I'm just trying to be better?
Yeah, I think the secret is in enjoying the journey and also being at peace when you're quiet, alone in your own space. Like, how many people can't be alone? They need to be around people, they need to be doing something all the time. It's that being able to just have a day where you do nothing and you feel good and you're just happy in your own space, just happy, like not feeling like you have to be busy or striving towards something. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs could take that moment to be like, yeah, I am constantly working, because we don't have this 9 to 5 job. A lot of entrepreneurs can feel like they have to be busy all the time. You're always feeling like you should be checking your emails or checking your social media or filming something or posting something.
Yeah.
You always feel like you've got to be doing something. And if you're not, it's like, oh, I'm missing out on something. And so it's that being able to enjoy the ride and say, you know what, I've done enough and I'm just going to enjoy my day, or I'm going to take a day off, and just being okay in your own space. And that's when you truly are just happy being you, and then you can strive for achievements because it's something that matters. You're doing something because you're passionate about it, not because it makes you look better, or it's going to give you some sense of acceptance.
Yes.
Does that make sense? You're really just doing it because you're passionate and it serves you. It gives you a feeling of purpose.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally resonate with that. You often say that we can live our best life now. Um, what does that truly look like? How can listeners, people who are listening, take the first step towards building their best life or living their best life right now?
I think that we can all, I think it's down to perception, honestly, because I think that we could look at someone and idolize their life and say, well, when I'm living that life, then I'll be living my best life. But that person might be feeling like, oh, I wish I could live my best life. So I think that appreciating what you have in the now, appreciating everything that you're doing in the now and the whole learning process, and enjoying the ride, sort of enjoying the journey, is key to living your best life. Because when we do just keep striving for more and more, but we don't enjoy what we've got, what we've earned, then you're always going to be striving for the next thing. You're never actually going to appreciate what you've done. When we talk about entrepreneurs or anyone, we're constantly succeeding. And so if you can't see that and enjoy that moment and go, wow, that was a great moment, if you're constantly looking to the next thing, then you're never going to feel like you're living your best life. I think it's really down to that perception of enjoying the ride. So even when you fail, how many lessons have you learned in that failure? So sometimes the biggest failure is that moment that you figure out what you really want to do, or it's the game changer in your life. And so if you can see it as that, then even when you fail or you have a great success, like, we need to either learn from the failures or enjoy and sort of celebrate those positive moments. And I think that's when you can experience your best life. And then knowing what your passions are and knowing what your purpose is. And that's part of just like knowing who you are and like where you want to be in the world. What do you want to be remembered for? And when you're really, I think, secure with that, then you're really secure with who you are. And then you really are living your best life because you know what you want. And even if you haven't yet achieved it, you know that you're on the path to achieve it, because life is kind of a journey. It's not a destination. It's not like you suddenly arrive somewhere and you're like, now I'm here, I'm in my best life. Your best life is that whole journey. It's all the learning moments. It's celebrating all those little successes and all the people that you meet along the way. It really is a full journey. It's a whole life. It's not just that one moment where you're like, now I've, reached that moment. So does that make sense? I think that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's like when you finally reach the destination and you'll be like you'll be happy for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then you're like, and now what? Now what? What's next?
Yeah, so yeah, you're so right. It's about I think it's a journey. Of course, it's easier said than done, right? We all know that, but I
Hmm.
think because the journey of the process of getting there, getting to your best life, or getting to your ideal, your vision, right? The ultimate vision, the one that's on your vision board. The journey of
Hmm.
going there or reaching there, I think is the most rewarding. It's like you are building something, you are doing it, you are creating, you're showing up.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So now I want to change topic a little,
Hmm.
because I know your work or your method rather also help people to reverse aging. Somewhere on your website, I think it says that the way we think also affect how we age. So talk to me about that.
Yes, so definitely the key, the secret. Absolutely. If you see someone who is feeling very negative and they're in a really, sort of dark moment in their life and they're frowning and their shoulders are forward, poor posture, head down, just not someone who you would feel comfortable walking up to, they're going to look and feel older than someone who is sort of bouncing around the room, shoulders back, perfect posture, smile on their face, that sort of thing. How we sort of think in our minds and our mindsets, whether it's positive or negative, has a big impact on sort of how we're carrying ourselves in life, how other people react to us. But then on a deeper level, when we think of stress and inflammation are probably the two things that age us the most and lead to most of the health complications that we have, and disease and that sort of thing. And so your perception to stress and inflammation is just as important as the actual, what's going on with the heart and that sort of thing, because and that's what we can change very quickly, and that's what I do a lot with these techniques to manage the stress, how we're coping with stress. Like the earlier on we were talking about the changing perceptions, that can be for somebody who's in a working environment where there's a particular person who's causing them a lot of angst at work because it's just a personality conflict. Or let's say that person is very narcissistic. And so this is someone who isn't. And so they take on a lot of that negativity and they go home and every day they're feeling really bad. They're not sleeping well. Maybe they're, not eating well at work because they're feeling that they're just not happy at work. They're really feeling a lot of burnout and feeling stressed because of this working relationship. Just being able to change that perception and put yourself in that other person's shoes, just to understand that they're doing the best they can with what they have, which is not giving you the energy that you need, but it's their problem, not yours. And being able to envision yourself almost with like a force field sort of thing where you don't allow their negativity in. A lot of this can be done using techniques. So you really feel like, like sometimes I'll tell people to like even make the sound like like the force field's coming up and okay, they're entering my office. I'm not letting any of this in. And it almost ends up with humor. I find humor works really well where you see the person coming and you're almost giggling to yourself because you're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever he's going to say to me. instead of letting all that go in, and then you're taking all this stress on, you're feeling miserable, and by the time you get home, the heart's been racing all day, blood pressure is high, pulse rate's high, because you've been so stressed and so angry towards this other person. And that person, by the way, has no idea. And there's no need for a conversation, because there's probably a personality conflict where nothing is going to necessarily be resolved. It's really about you not letting that negativity influence you. And so it can lead to high blood pressure. It can lead to, heart issues and lack of sleep. Sleep is a huge thing for aging. So you can see how, if this is going on every day just because of one person, if you're letting all these stresses happen to you and you're taking it all on board, it's affecting your health. And so when you can live in this body and all the stress is happening around you, but you don't let any of it in, then you really don't age as much as someone who takes all of this in. So, for example, I lived in Miami. I did university there, and the traffic was insane. And the road rage is what we used to call it, where people are screaming at each other out their windows and honking their horns and cutting each other off just because the traffic was so horrendous. The amount of stress you would feel, like, just from being in that traffic, where if you could just put yourself in a moment of zen in your car, play music, and just use that time positively, like, oh, this is great, I've got 20 minutes to sit and listen to a podcast, or I'm going to listen to my favorite music, and just kind of put a fun emphasis on it, rather than feeling like, oh, I hate this traffic, and by the time you get to work you're already so stressed. That's where perception and your mindset can really have an effect on your health, your happiness, and aging.
Yeah, guys, that is the secret. It all starts with your mind, you know.
Because, I mean, stress is always going to be around you. You can't possibly not have it. You can't have situations where negative people don't come into your world.
Yeah.
We have this everywhere. So you just need to change how you react and how you feel inside, and your ability to stay calm and feel happy in any situation.
Mm,
And so that's a lot of what I work on with these techniques.
it's a lot. Yeah. But to sum it up, for everything that we talk about, what is one piece of wisdom you wish everyone knew about transforming their mindset today and their emotional well being? If you could leave us just one piece of message, what would that be?
I think I like thinking of our body as like a house. Like, you've just built your perfect house, and you get to decide who comes in. Like, you start with just making this house as perfect as you can. So that's like eating well, sleeping well, taking care of yourself, exercising well. And then you decide who gets to come in. And that's you deciding what energy gets to affect you or not. So choosing positive people to be around you, choosing people who lift you up, especially when you're working on bettering yourself in a certain way. Then it's really important to find other people that are like-minded. I think that's really important for entrepreneurs who are starting out. You need to find other people that maybe are a few steps further than you, because that helps pull you up as well. It's you need to surround yourself with people who are going to help you believe in yourself more, and start to limit those people that pull you down, and just kind of keep yourself surrounded by that positive energy, but always constantly feeding your soul with things that are healthy and positive minded, for yourself.
Yes, guys. I mean, it's all about selection. It's all about, like you said, it's about being aware and being mindful of who you let into your own space, who you talk to, what kind of podcast you listen to, what kind of friends do you hang out with, right? Because you are the one of the famous quote, one of the average five people that you hang out with, something like that.
Hmm.
So if you hang out with negative people, you will just become a negative people. If you hang out with millionaires, you will just become the next millionaire. Like, that's it. That
Yeah.
simple. Yeah. So thank you so much again for everything, for sharing so generously with me and my listeners today. Now, before we end, we always end with our final five rapid fire questions. Every question has to be answered in either one word or one sentence maximum.
Okay.
All right. The first question is, what is one thing you wish you knew earlier?
How important having positive people in my life.
Love that. Second question, if you could relive one day of your life, which day would it be?
Probably the birth of my daughters.
Oh,
So maybe that's 2 days actually.
wow, 2 days of labor. I mean, that's if you could master one skill you don't currently have, what would it be?
Oh, this is going to sound silly. Kite surfing.
Kite surfing. Okay. I always enjoy this part of the episode because it's it's so fun.
The reason for the kite surfing is I always think it's positive to try new things and sort of jump out of your comfort zone. And that's just been the one thing that I just cannot master. And so there.
Oh, okay. Wow, something you cannot master. Maybe it starts with the mindset. Maybe start visualizing yourself.
Exactly. I need to visualize myself kite surfing.
Yeah, yeah. All right. The next question is, if you could instantly solve one world problem, what would it be?
Homelessness.
Wow. No one said that to me before. No one.
Oh, really?
Love that. Yes, no one. I mean, you are the first one, not say no one, but yeah, you are the first one who gave me this answer. I love that. Yeah. The last question is, what brings you the greatest joy?
Time with family, I think.
Yeah, and your dog as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep. Thank you so much. Now, tell my people where they can find you and connect with you and learn more about what you do. Where should I send them?
I have a website, www.megginsonmethod.com. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok at Megginson Method. If you put Joy with Joyan and send me an email, then I would offer a free 15-minute session. I call it a sort of power session. So it really gets to that core issue, and then we figure out where we go from there. But often for people, that first session is enough for them just to realize what they need to work on.
Guys, all you need to do is just get started, talk to someone, get started. Maybe you just need that one simple techniques that can change your life forever. Of course, we have shared a lot of techniques throughout this conversation, so go back and listen to this episode again and again and again. And if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment below if you're watching this, or you can send us a DM. We'd love to hear from you. And I will always leave you the same way as I leave you every other episode. Show up. The world needs you and you need you. Thanks for listening, and I wish you all a joyful and amazing day ahead. Bye. Thank you again for tuning into Find Joy Joyan podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and share it on your IG story and tag Find Joy Joyan _podcast so I know you are listening. And leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already done so. And remember to hit the subscribe button whether you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, or any of your other favorite platforms. If you love what we are doing and want to become one of our sponsors, you can send me a DM to connect. And thanks for being here. I will see you soon in the next episode.